Selena Merrick didn't flee the mating ball to play hard to get. She ran to stay alive. The moment the moon goddess paired her with Alpha Barak Liam, the man rumors called the Butcher, she knew her life was over. So she rejected the bond, stole a coat, and vanished into the human world. 5 months later, the glamour of being a runaway Luna has rotted away. Now she is just a waitress with a fake name, hiding in a grease-stained diner, battling a mysterious sickness that drains her marrow. She thinks she's hidden. She thinks the nausea is just fear. She is wrong. Chapter 1. The smell of stale bacon grease was going to be the death of her. It clung to the vinyl booths, coated the checkered floor tiles, and seemed to have permanently settled into Selena's pores. She gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles turning white as a wave of nausea rolled through her gut, violent and sharp. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to breathe through her nose, in, out, until the room stopped spinning. "Table 4 needs a refill on the coffee, hun." Matilda's voice cut through the haze, rough like gravel but not unkind. The older woman slapped a wet rag onto the counter, eyeing Selena with a mixture of suspicion and pity. "You look like hell again. Maybe you should go lie down in the back." "I'm fine," Selena lied, pushing herself upright. The movement made her vision swim, black spots dancing in the periphery. "Just a headache. It's the storm coming in." It wasn't the storm. It was the stress. It had to be. It had been 5 months since she had run from the grand mating ball, 3 months since she had felt the terrifying, magnetic pull of the bond snap into place with the one man she had been warned to fear above all else. Alpha Barak Liam, the king of the East Coast, the Butcher. She had rejected the bond before it could fully settle, tearing herself away from the pull that felt like gravity, and she had been paying for it ever since. Her wolf was silent, curled into a dormant ball of misery in the back of her mind, weakened by the separation. That was why she was sick. It was rejection sickness. It had to be. It explained the fatigue that made her bones feel like lead, the dizziness, the way the smell of eggs frying made her want to retch. She grabbed the coffee pot, her hand trembling slightly. She was safe here. That was what she told herself every single day. This was a no-name town in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by iron-rich hills that messed with shifter senses. No one looked for a high-born wolf in a roadside diner called the Route 9 Pit Stop. "Hey, Selena," Emily, the teenager who washed dishes on the weekends, whispered as she passed by with a tub of dirty silverware. "There's a black SUV parked across the street. Like, a really fancy one. Do you think it's the feds?" Selena froze. The coffee pot rattled against the ceramic mug she was filling. Fear, cold and electric, shot down her spine. What kind of SUV? Big, black, tinted windows. Looked like a tank, Emily giggled, oblivious to the way the color drained from Selena's face. Selena didn't giggle. She set the pot down, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. A tank. That was what they called the Lycan Enforcer vehicles. Armored, fast, unstoppable. She glanced toward the front window where the rain was lashing against the glass in gray sheets. Through the blur of water and neon signage, she saw it. A shadow. A hulking silhouette of a vehicle that didn't belong in a parking lot full of rusted pickups and sedans. It couldn't be him. It couldn't. She had been so careful. She paid cash. She never shifted. She used scent blockers that smelled like sulfur and pine. But as she stared at the vehicle, a low, vibrating hum started in the base of her skull. It wasn't a sound. It was a frequency. A warning. Her wolf stirred for the first time in weeks, not with joy but with panic. Run, the instinct whispered. The diner door didn't open. It was pushed inward by a force of nature. The little bell above the frame gave a pathetic jingle that was instantly swallowed by the sudden change in air pressure. The chatter of the truckers in the corner booth died instantly. The clatter of silverware stopped. Even the hiss of the fry grill seemed to quiet down, as if the inanimate objects themselves were afraid to make a sound. Selina ducked behind the pie display case, her heart thudding so hard she was sure everyone in the room could hear it. She pressed her back against the cold metal of the refrigerator unit, her breath coming in shallow, terrified gasps. She didn't need to look to know who had walked in. She could taste him. The scent hit her first, a dark, overwhelming wave of rain, ozone, and cedarwood, underlaid with the metallic tang of something dangerous, something like blood and iron. It was the scent of an apex predator. It rolled through the diner, thick and suffocating, making the hair on her arms stand straight up. "Table for one," a voice said. It wasn't a loud voice. It was a low, resonant baritone that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. It was a voice used to giving orders that resulted in life or death. Matilda, bless her fearless heart, didn't seem to notice the predator in her midst. Or maybe she was just too tired to care. "Sit anywhere you like, sugar. Menu's on the table. We're out of the meatloaf." Selina squeezed her eyes shut, praying to the moon goddess she had forsaken. Please let him be passing through. Please let him be looking for a fugitive, not a mate. "I'm not hungry," the voice replied. The footsteps started. Heavy, deliberate strides. Thud, thud, thud. They weren't moving toward a booth. They were moving toward the counter, toward the service station, toward her. "I'm looking for someone." Selina's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a whimper. The nausea roiled in her stomach again, violent and sudden, triggered by the proximity of his aura. It was crushing her. It felt like standing next to a nuclear reactor. "Looking for who?" Matilda asked, her tone shifting from tired to defensive. "We don't get many strangers around here." "A girl," the man said. The footsteps stopped. He was close, maybe 10 feet away, separated only by the counter and the pie case. About 5'5", pale, dark hair. Goes by the name Selina, though that isn't her name. There was a silence that stretched for an eternity. "Never heard of her," Matilda lied. Selina felt a tear leak out and track down her nose. Matilda was trying to save her, but lying to a lichen alpha was a death sentence. She couldn't let Matilda die for her. She had to move. She had to run. "Is that so?" The voice dropped an octave, turning into a growl that wasn't human. "Then perhaps you can explain why this diner reeks of her scent. Why I can smell her fear on the very air you breathe." A crash from the kitchen. Emily dropping a tray. "She's in the back," Emily squeaked, terrified by the growl. Betrayal. But Selina couldn't blame the girl. The aura radiating from the man was designed to force submission. Selina didn't wait. She scrambled on her hands and knees, staying low, and bolted for the rear exit that led to the alleyway. "Selina!" the voice roared, no longer calm, no longer controlled. It was a command that slammed into her back like a physical blow. She burst through the heavy metal door into the pouring rain, slipping on the wet asphalt, scrambling to regain her footing. She didn't look back. She just ran. The alley was a narrow throat of brick and darkness, smelling of wet cardboard and rotting garbage. Rain lashed against Selina's face, blinding her, plastering her waitress uniform to her shivering skin. Her cheap sneakers slapped against the puddles as she sprinted toward the chain-link fence at the end of the block. If she could clear the fence, she could get into the woods. If she got to the woods, she could try to mask her trail in the creek. It was a stupid plan. It was the plan of a desperate prey animal, not a thinking woman. You couldn't outrun a lichen. You couldn't outrun him. She reached the fence, her fingers hooking into the wire mesh. Tearing her skin as she tried to hoist herself up, her body betrayed her. Her arms were weak, devoid of strength. The dizziness hit her again, and she slipped, her knees scraping agonizingly against the pavement. "I expected more of a chase," a voice came from the shadows ahead of her. Selena froze, clutching the fence, looking up. A figure stepped out from behind the dumpster, blocking her path to the woods. It wasn't the man from the diner. This one was shorter, broader, with a shaved head and eyes that looked like flat, dead sharks. Beta Logan Donovan, Barack's executioner. "Please," she gasped, backing away. "I didn't do anything." "You rejected the king," Logan said, his voice void of emotion. He took a step forward, closing the distance. "That is treason." Selena spun around to run back toward the diner, but her path was gone. Standing at the other end of the alley, blocking the only exit, was the man from the diner. Alpha Barack Liam was a mountain of a man, even in a bespoke Italian suit that was now being ruined by the rain. He stood perfectly still, his hands in his pockets, his shoulders broad enough to block out the streetlights. He wasn't shifting. He didn't need to. The sheer menace radiating off him was enough to kill. "You led me on a merry dance, little wolf," Barack said softly. He began to walk toward her. He didn't rush. He moved with the terrifying inevitability of a landslide. Selena backed up until her spine hit the wet brick wall. She was trapped between the beta and the alpha, between death and something worse. "Stay back!" she screamed, though her voice cracked. She grabbed a shard of a broken beer bottle from the ground, holding it out with a shaking hand. "I'll kill myself before I let you take me." Barack stopped 5 feet away. The rain dripped from his dark hair, running down the sharp planes of his face. His eyes were glowing, a luminous, terrifying gold that cut through the gloom. He looked at the glass in her hand, then up to her eyes. He didn't look worried. He looked insulted. "You think death is an escape from me?" he asked, his voice low and raspy. "I would drag your soul back from the underworld myself." He lunged. It was too fast for human eyes to follow. 1 second he was 5 feet away. The next he was a wall of heat and muscle pressing her into the brickwork. He knocked the glass from her hand with a casual slap that numbed her arm, and then his hand was at her throat, not squeezing, but pinning, holding her there. Selena squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the pain, waiting for the punishment. He was going to kill her. Or worse, he was going to mark her against her will, forcing the bond back into place before dragging her to his dungeon. She felt his body pressing against hers, hard and unyielding. She felt the heat of his rage, a physical temperature that seemed to steam against the cold rain. "Look at me," he snarled. Selena shook her head, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "No. I said look at me." His hand moved from her throat to her jaw, forcing her head up. She opened her eyes and found herself drowning in molten gold. His face was inches from hers, contorted in a mask of fury and hurt pride. "Why?" he hissed, his breath hot against her skin. "I offered you a crown. I offered you protection, and you ran to this filth?" He gestured vaguely at the alleyway, at her stained uniform. "I wanted to be free," she whispered. "I didn't want to be owned." "You are my mate," Barack roared, the sound echoing off the brick walls, causing the dumpster lids to rattle. "You belong to me by the decree of the goddess." He leaned in, burying his face in the crook of her neck, inhaling deeply. It was an aggressive, possessive act. He was scenting her, reclaiming her, overlaying his scent on hers so every wolf for 100 miles would know she was property of the king. Selena stiffened, holding her breath, waiting for the bite. He inhaled once, a long, deep drag of air. Then he froze. His entire body went rigid against hers. The hand on her jaw tightened painfully for a microsecond before loosening completely. The angry heat radiating from him seemed to vanish, replaced by a sudden, icy stillness. He pulled back just an inch. His eyes were wide, the pupils blown so large they swallowed the gold irises. The rage was gone. In its place was confusion, absolute bewilderment. "Barack?" she whispered, terrified by the sudden change. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. He leaned down again, not to her neck, but lower. He pressed his face toward her chest, then lower still, hovering near her stomach. He took short, sharp breaths, like a hound catching a faint trail. "Impossible," he breathed. The word was barely audible over the rain. "What?" He looked up at her, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. It wasn't anger anymore. It was awe. It was a terrifying, fanatical wonder. Slowly, as if he were approaching a bomb that might go off, he lifted his large hand. He placed it directly on her stomach, over the damp, stained fabric of her apron. His hand was warm, heavy, and trembling. Selena flinched, trying to pull away, but he pinned her with his body, not aggressively this time, but protectively, shielding her. "Get off me!" she panicked, pushing at his chest. "I'm sick. Leave me alone." "You're not sick," Barack whispered. His voice broke. He looked from her stomach back to her eyes, and a slow, dark smile spread across his face. A smile that promised she would never, ever be free again. "What are you talking about?" she cried. Barack leaned in, his lips brushing her ear, his hand flexing possessively over her womb. "Two," he murmured, the vibration traveling straight into her bones. "Two what?" "Two heartbeats," the alpha said. "I smelled you, Selena, but underneath the fear, I smell my air. The sickness isn't death, it's life, and the father just found her trail." Chapter 2. The rain continued to hammer down into the alleyway, but Selena could no longer feel it. The cold, biting wind that had been cutting through her thin waitress uniform was gone, replaced by a wall of suffocating heat. Barack stood over her, his massive frame blocking out the streetlights, blocking out the world. His hand was still pressed flat against her stomach, his palm trembling slightly against the damp fabric of her apron. The golden glow in his eyes hadn't faded. If anything, it had intensified, burning with a fanatical, terrifying realization. "Two," he repeated, the word barely a whisper, yet heavy enough to crush the air between them. Selena couldn't breathe. She was pinned against the wet brick, trapped between the hard muscle of his chest and the wall. She waited for him to shout, to drag her by her hair, to call her a traitor. He didn't. Slowly, as if moving through water, Barack pulled back. He shrugged off his suit jacket, a garment that likely cost more than the diner made in a year, and draped it over her shoulders. The silk lining was warm from his body heat. It smelled of him. Dark cedar, rain, and sheer power. It was heavy, weighing her down, branding her. "You're freezing," he murmured. His voice wasn't the roar of the alpha anymore. It was a rough, confused rumble. He buttoned the jacket at her throat with surprisingly gentle fingers. "Barack," she stammered, her teeth chattering. "I didn't know." "I swear." "Hush," he commanded. He didn't look at her eyes. He looked at her neck, where her pulse was fluttering like a trapped bird. "We are leaving. This place. It smells of grease and despair. It is no place for an heir." He didn't give her a choice. He didn't grab her arm. He simply placed a hand on the small of her back and guided her toward the alley exit. The pressure was light, but the implication was absolute. Move, or be moved. Beta Logan was waiting at the mouth of the alley. The shaved-headed enforcer looked from Barack to Selena, his flat eyes landing on the Alpha's jacket draped over the runaway's shoulders. Confusion flickered across his face, followed by a sharp, dangerous suspicion. "Alpha?" Logan asked, his hand hovering near the gun at his belt. "Is the target secured? Do we need restraints?" "Open the door," Barack said. His tone was flat, brookling no argument. Logan hesitated for a fraction of a second, a lifetime in wolf years, before opening the back door of the massive armored black SUV. Selena climbed inside. The interior was leather and silence. It smelled of new car and sterile air conditioning. It felt like a hearse. Barack slid in beside her. He didn't sit close, but his presence filled the cabin. As the door slammed shut, sealing them in, Selena felt the air pressure drop. The engine roared to life. As the car pulled away from the diner, away from Matilda, from Emily, from the only safe haven she had known, Selena felt a tear slide down her nose. "Are you going to kill me?" she whispered, staring at her hands. She had to know. She needed to know if she was walking to her execution. Barack turned his head slowly. In the passing streetlights, his profile was sharp, harsh, and beautiful in a cruel way. "Kill you?" he repeated, as if the concept was foreign. He looked down at her stomach, hidden beneath his jacket. "I kill my enemies, Selena. I kill those who threaten my pack. You are no longer an enemy. You are the future." The drive was agonizingly long. The rain blurred the world outside into gray streaks. In the front seat, Beta Logan was restless. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror, his eyes narrowing every time he saw Selena. He didn't know about the baby. He only saw a traitor who had humiliated his king, now sitting wrapped in the king's colors. "Alpha," Logan said, his voice tight. "Protocol for a retrieved runner dictates holding cells until the council can convene. I can have the basement prepped by the time we arrive." Selena flinched. The basement. The dungeons. Barack didn't shift in his seat, but the temperature in the car plummeted. A low, vibrating growl started in his chest, a sound so deep it rattled the windows. "She goes to the master suite," Barack said softly. Logan's eyes widened in the mirror. "Sir? The master suite?" "But she rejected the bond. She is a flight risk. Security protocol." "Is to protect the pack." Barack cut him off. The growl rose, becoming audible, filling the small space with predatory menace. "She is the pack, Logan. If you suggest putting her in a cage again, I will tear your tongue out." Logan went pale. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "Understood, Alpha." Selena looked at Barack, shocked. He was defending her. He was threatening his own Beta for her. She pulled his jacket tighter around herself, confused and terrified. This wasn't the monster she had run from. Or maybe this was a different kind of monster. One who didn't destroy, but possessed. They turned off the highway onto a private road that wound through dense, dark forests. These were the Blackwood lands. Ancient trees, thick with moss and fog, lined the driveway like sentinels. Then the estate came into view. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress of gray stone and glass, rising out of the mist like a jagged mountain peak. High walls topped with iron spikes surrounded the perimeter. Guards with assault rifles patrolled the gates. Floodlights cut through the rain, illuminating the Blackwood crest carved into the stone archway. A wolf's head with a crown of thorns. The SUV stopped at the front steps. "We are home," Barack said. He didn't wait for Logan. He opened his own door and stepped out into the rain, then turned and offered his hand to Selena. She stared at it. It was a large hand, scarred and calloused, capable of snapping a neck with a twist, but the palm was open, waiting. She realized then that she had no choice. If she ran, the guards would shoot. If she stayed in the car, Logan would drag her out. She placed her trembling hand in his. Barack's fingers closed around hers, warm, firm, and possessive. He pulled her out of the car and led her up the stairs, not as a prisoner in chains, but as a prize won in war. The heavy oak doors groaned open, swallowing them into the belly of the beast. Chapter 3. Selena woke with a gasp, her heart hammering against her ribs. For a second, she thought she was back in the motel room, waiting for the roaches to scatter when she turned on the light. Then she felt the sheets. They were silk, cool, slippery, and impossibly soft against her skin. She sat up, the duvet falling away. She wasn't in a motel. She was in a bed large enough to sleep 4 people, in a room that smelled of lavender and beeswax. High ceilings, velvet curtains, a fireplace crackling with low embers. It was beautiful, and it made her want to vomit. The nausea hit her instantly, roiling in her empty stomach. She scrambled out of bed, her bare feet sinking into a plush Persian rug, and ran for the door that looked like a bathroom. She barely made it to the marble basin before she retched. Nothing came up but bile and fear. She gripped the cold stone of the counter, shaking, sweating. This was the rejection sickness. That's what she had told herself for months. But now, staring at her pale reflection in the gold-framed mirror, she knew the truth. She placed a hand on her stomach. 2 heartbeats. "You're real," she whispered to the flat skin. "You're actually real." A sharp knock at the bedroom door made her jump. "Enter," she croaked, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. The door opened and a woman walked in. She was tall, severe, and impeccably dressed in a charcoal pantsuit. Her hair was pulled back into a bun so tight it looked painful. She held a clipboard like a weapon. Gamma Virali, the strategist. Virali didn't look at the room. She looked at Selena with cold, calculating eyes. She scanned the oversized t-shirt Selena had slept in, her messy hair, her pale face. She didn't look impressed. "You look terrible," Virali stated flatly. "Nice to see you too, Virali," Selena muttered, walking back into the bedroom, wrapping her arms around herself. "The Alpha has requested your presence for breakfast," Virali said, checking something off on her clipboard. "However, looking like a drowned rat will not do. The staff is already whispering. If the pack sees you weak, they will question his judgment in bringing you back." "I didn't ask to be brought back," Selena snapped. Virali stopped writing. She looked up, her expression hardening. "No, you didn't. You ran. You left a power vacuum that almost caused a civil war, and now you are back, carrying the only thing that matters." Virali took a step closer. "Let's be clear, Selena. I don't care about your romance. I care about the stability of this region. You are walking on thin ice. Do not crack it." She snapped her fingers. 2 maids entered, carrying a rack of clothes. Silks, cashmeres, soft wools. "Get dressed, and try to look like a Luna, not a victim." When the maids left, Selena didn't get dressed. She went to the window. It was floor-to-ceiling glass, overlooking a sheer drop into the forest below. There was no balcony, no ledge, just a 30-foot drop onto jagged rocks. She went to the door. Locked from the outside? No. It opened easily. She peeked into the hallway. It was empty, quiet. Hope flared in her chest. Maybe she could just walk out? Maybe they were arrogant enough to leave her unguarded. She stepped into the hall barefoot. She made it 3 steps before a shadow detached itself from the wall. A guard. Massive. Silent. Wearing the Blackwood crest. He didn't say a word. He just stepped in front of her path, crossing his arms. He didn't look angry. He looked like a wall. Selina turned around. Another guard stood at the other end of the hall. She wasn't a guest. She was a bird in a golden cage. Defeated, she retreated back into the room, slamming the door. She leaned against it, sliding down to the floor, burying her face in her knees. There was no way out. Not this time. She must have dozed off on the floor, exhausted by the stress. She woke to the feeling of being watched. It was a physical sensation, like a touch on the back of her neck. Selina opened her eyes. Barack was sitting in the armchair across the room. He hadn't made a sound. He was leaning forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. He was wearing a dark sweater that made him look less like a soldier and more like a predator at rest. He was just staring. His eyes traced the line of her jaw, the curve of her shoulder, the way her hands were curled in her lap. It wasn't a lecherous stare. It was intense, unblinking, and deeply unsettling. It was the look of a dragon guarding its hoard. "You sleep on the floor," he said softly, "when there is a bed fit for a queen 2 feet away." "I prefer the floor," Selina lied, scrambling to her feet. "It's grounding." Barack stood up. He moved with a liquid grace that belied his size. He walked toward her, stopping only when he was close enough that she could smell the coffee and mint on his breath. "You don't have to be afraid, Selina," he said. He reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her skin, hot and rough. "I told you, you are home." "This isn't a home," she whispered, her voice shaking. "It's a prison. There are guards at my door." "There are wolves at the gate," Barack corrected, his eyes darkening. "The guards are not there to keep you in. They are there to keep the world out." Chapter 4. Sit on the table, please. Dr. Anahita was a small woman with kind eyes and hands that smelled of antiseptic and sage. She moved efficiently around the medical suite, a high-tech facility located in the west wing of the estate. Selina hopped onto the examination table, the paper crinkling loudly in the silence. Barack stood in the corner. He refused to leave. He stood with his arms crossed, watching every move Anahita made with hawk-like intensity. Every time the doctor touched Selina to check her pulse or her glands, a low rumble vibrated in Barack's chest. "Alpha," Anahita sighed, not looking up from her chart. "If you growl at me one more time, I will sedate you." Barack's jaw clicked shut. He didn't apologize, but the growling stopped. "How long have you been feeling the nausea?" Anahita asked Selina, shining a light into her eyes. 5 months, Selina admitted. Since the ceremony. I thought it was just stress, or the bond rejection." "It is both," Anahita said grimly. "Lie back. Lift your shirt." Selina lay back, exposing her stomach. It was flat, pale, and trembling. Anahita squirted clear, cold gel onto her skin. Selina flinched. Barack took a step forward instinctively, then stopped himself. Anahita pressed the ultrasound wand against Selina's belly, moving it slowly. "There," the doctor whispered. She turned the monitor so they could see. It was a grainy, black and white image, a blur of static. But in the center there was a small, distinct bean-shaped shadow, and inside that shadow a tiny, frantic flutter. Thump, 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 thump. The sound filled the room, amplified by the speakers. It was fast, much faster than a human heart. It sounded like a hummingbird. Selena covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. Oh, God. Barack moved. He couldn't help it. He walked to the monitor, staring at the screen with an expression of pure, shattered awe. He reached out, tracing the ghost of the image on the glass. Strong, Barack whispered. He sounds strong. He is strong, Anahita said, wiping the gel from Selena's stomach. Too strong. The doctor's tone dropped, becoming serious. She turned off the monitor, plunging the room back into silence. That is the problem, Alpha. The pup is a pure-blood lichen. He requires an immense amount of energy to grow. Usually, he would draw that energy from the mating bond, the connection between the mother and the father. Anahita looked at Selena, her eyes sad. But you rejected the bond, Selena. The connection is severed. You are closed off from the Alpha's strength. Selena sat up, pulling her shirt down. What does that mean? It means the baby has no power source, Anahita said bluntly. So he is taking it from you. He is leaching calcium from your bones, iron from your blood, and magic from your wolf. That is why you are sick. That is why you are fainting. Barack's face went gray. Is she in danger? If this continues? Anahita nodded. Yes. As the pup grows, he will drain her dry. Her wolf is already fading. If she doesn't accept the bond, neither of them will survive the winter. The air was sucked out of the room. Selena stared at the doctor, horrified. She had run away to save herself, and in doing so she was killing herself. And the baby. Barack looked at Selena. The awe was gone, replaced by a desperate, frantic terror. Fix it, Barack ordered Anahita. Give her medicine. Give her transfusions. Medicine won't fix a magical deficit, Alpha, Anahita said, standing up. She looked Barack dead in the eye. There is only one cure. She has to open the bond. She has to accept you. Fully. I can't just force it, Selena whispered. I tried. I was scared. Then you need to stop being scared, Anahita said firmly. She turned to Barack. And you cannot force her. If you force the mark, her wolf will view it as an attack and reject it harder. It will kill the baby instantly. Anahita gathered her files. She has to choose you, Barack, the doctor said softly. You have to make her want the bond. You have to make her fall in love with you. And you don't have much time. Anahita left the room, the door clicking shut behind her. Barack and Selena were left alone in the sterile silence. The truth hung between them like a blade. He couldn't be the butcher anymore. He couldn't be the king who took what he wanted. Barack looked at her, his hands hanging uselessly at his sides. He looked completely lost. Tell me what to do, he rasped, his voice breaking. Tell me how to save you. Chapter 5. The Blackwood estate was not a home. It was a mausoleum built of mahogany, marble, and old blood money. For 3 days, Selena had been confined to the master suite, a room larger than the entire diner she had scrubbed floors in, under the strict orders of Dr. Anahita. Bed rest, the healer had commanded, her tone brokering no argument. Your wolf is on the brink of fading. Stress will kill the pup. But on the 4th morning, the confinement felt less like medical necessity and more like imprisonment. Barack had been gone since dawn, dealing with border patrols, leaving Selena alone with her thoughts and the terrifying rhythmic thrum of the new life growing inside her. She needed air. She needed to feel something other than the lingering scent of sandalwood and rain that Barack left on the pillows. She pushed open the heavy oak doors of the bedroom. The hallway was silent, lined with portraits of grim-faced men with Barack's eyes. There were no guards posted directly at the door. Barack was arrogant enough to believe the sheer weight of his territory was enough to keep her here. But she could feel eyes on her. The house itself seemed to watch. She wandered down the grand staircase, her hand trailing over the cold banister. The silence was oppressive. In the diner there was always noise, the clatter of plates, the hum of the refrigerator, the swearing of truck drivers. Here, the silence was heavy, expensive, and suffocating. She found herself gravitating toward the back of the house, drawn by the faint smell of jasmine and damp earth. She pushed through a set of French doors into a sprawling conservatory. It was a glass-walled jungle, humid and lush, filled with exotic plants that likely cost more than her life's earnings. "You shouldn't be out of bed," a voice purred from the shadows of a large fern. "The king will be displeased if his incubator is damaged." Selina froze, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. A woman stepped out from the greenery. She was stunning, tall, with hair like spilled ink and eyes the color of emeralds. She wore a silk dress that clung to her curves like a second skin. "Who are you?" Selina asked, her voice raspy from disuse. "I'm Diva," the woman said, smiling. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator looking at a wounded rabbit. "I'm the one who was supposed to be standing where you are, before you ran away like a coward and dragged our alpha's name through the mud." Selina stiffened. She knew who Diva was. The pack gossiped, and even in her short time here she had heard the whispers from the maids. Diva was high-ranking, ambitious, and vicious. She had been campaigning to be Barack's mate for years. "I didn't ask for this," Selina said quietly, stepping back. "I didn't ask for the bond. I didn't ask for him." Diva laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. She walked around Selina, circling her, inspecting her baggy sweatpants and oversized t-shirt with open disdain. "Of course you didn't. You're a stray, a nobody. And yet, here you are, carrying the royal heir inside that fragile little body." Diva stopped in front of her, leaning in close. She smelled of expensive perfume and something bitter. "Do you think he kept you because he cares? Do you think the butcher has a heart?" "He hasn't hurt me," Selina defended, though she didn't know why. Perhaps it was because Barack hadn't hurt her. He had been overwhelming, possessive, and terrifying, but he had treated her with a strange, reverent gentleness since the alleyway. "Give it time," Diva whispered, her eyes gleaming with malice. "You know the stories. You know how he got the throne. He tore his own brother's throat out in the throne room. Blood stained the floors for weeks. They say he didn't even blink." Selina felt a chill run through her. She had heard the stories. Everyone had. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to know your place," Diva hissed. "You are a vessel. Once that pup is born, once the heir is safe in his arms, what use will he have for a runaway who rejected him? He keeps you comfortable now because he has to. But winter is coming, little wolf, and useless things are discarded in the cold." "I don't believe you," Selina lied, her heart pounding. "Don't you?" Diva raised an eyebrow. "Come, let me show you exactly how much he cares about you." Diva turned and walked briskly out of the conservatory. Selina shouldn't have followed. Her instincts screamed at her to run back to the safety of the bedroom, to wait for Barack. But the seed of doubt had been planted. She followed Diva down a long, winding corridor in the east wing, a part of the house that felt unused, the air stagnant and still. Diva stopped in front of a white door at the end of the hall. "Open it!" Selina hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the knob. She turned it and pushed the door open. The breath left her lungs. It was a nursery. But it wasn't just a room. It was a shrine. The walls were painted a soft, calming gray. There was a crib carved from white oak, filled with soft blankets. There were shelves lined with books, toys, and tiny clothes, He bought all of this, Diva said from the doorway, her voice devoid of warmth. Months ago, before he even found you, before he knew you were pregnant. I don't understand, Selena whispered, walking into the room. She ran her hand over the crib. It was beautiful. He was planning this, Diva said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He was preparing the cage. He knew he would find you. He knew he would breed you. Look at it, Selena. There is nothing here for you. No chair for a mother to nurse in. No bed for you to rest. It's a room for a baby. Selena looked around frantically. Diva was right. It was a room designed for a child, devoid of any comfort for an adult. He doesn't want a mate, Diva said, delivering the final blow. He wants a legacy. And once you give it to him, you're just a loose end. Selena backed out of the room, her chest heaving. The beautiful crib suddenly looked like a coffin. The soft toys looked like mocking spectators. Get out, Selena gasped, stumbling back into the hallway. I'm leaving, Diva said, a satisfied smirk playing on her lips. But ask yourself this tonight when he plays the doting husband. If he loved you, why did he kill his own flesh and blood? And why would he hesitate to kill a stranger who embarrassed him? Diva turned and walked away, her heels clicking rhythmically on the hardwood floor. Selena stood alone in the hallway, staring into the nursery. The sickness rose in her throat again, violent and acidic. She wasn't safe here. Barack didn't see her as a person. He saw her as an incubator. A temporary housing unit for the only thing he actually cared about. She turned to flee back to her room, but she slammed directly into a hard, solid chest. Strong hands gripped her shoulders to steady her. The scent of rain and sandalwood engulfed her. Selena? Barack's voice rumbled above her, deep and laced with concern. What are you doing in the East Wing? You're supposed to be resting. She looked up at him. His golden eyes were searching her face, looking for injury. For a second, she wanted to collapse into him. But then she saw the nursery door open behind her. She saw the crib. She saw the ghost of the brother he murdered. She pulled away from his touch as if he burned her. Don't touch me, she whispered, backing away, wrapping her arms around her stomach. Don't you dare touch me. Barack froze, his hands hovering in the air, his eyes narrowed, shifting from her terrified face to the open door of the nursery, and then to the lingering, bitter scent of Diva's perfume in the hallway. His expression darkened. The concern vanished, replaced by a cold, terrifying rage. But this time, Selena didn't know if the rage was for her or for the woman who had just poisoned his well. What did she tell you? He growled. Chapter 6. Dinner was a silent, agonizing affair. Barack had ordered a table set on the private balcony of the master suite, overlooking the sprawling forests of his territory. The moon was high and full, casting a silver glow over the fine china and crystal glasses. It should have been romantic. Instead, it felt like an interrogation. Selena sat stiffly in her chair, pushing a piece of roasted duck around her plate. She hadn't eaten since lunch, but her stomach was knotted so tight she couldn't swallow. Barack sat opposite her, watching her every movement with intense, unblinking focus. He had dismissed the staff. He poured her water himself. He cut her meat. It was domestic, but in the hands of a warlord, it felt predatory. You need to eat, Barack said, his voice breaking the silence. It wasn't a suggestion. Anahita says the pup is taking everything. You are losing weight. I'm not hungry, Selena murmured, refusing to meet his eyes. Selena, he warned, a low rumble in his chest. Do not punish the child because you are angry with me. I'm not angry, she snapped, finally looking up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. I'm terrified. There is a difference. Barack set his knife down slowly. The metal clicked against the porcelain. I told you. No harm will come to you within these walls. Diva has been dealt with. She will not approach you again. Dealt with? Selena laughed humorlessly. Did you kill her too? Like your brother? The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Barack's jaw clenched, a muscle feathering in his cheek. He didn't deny it. He didn't explain. He just stared at her with those bottomless golden eyes, his silence confirming every fear Diva had planted. A knock at the door shattered the tension. Enter! Barack barked, not looking away from Selena. A young guard, new to the inner circle, stepped onto the balcony. He looked nervous, holding a tablet. Alpha. Beta Logan needs your approval on the perimeter shifts for the gala. Barack took the tablet, scrolling through it quickly. The guard's eyes flickered to Selena. It was a brief glance, but it lingered. He looked at her mismatched, oversized clothes, at her pale, frightened face. His lip curled slightly, a micro-expression of judgment, a look that said, "This is the Luna? The runaway? Is there a problem, soldier?" Barack asked. He hadn't looked up from the tablet, but his voice was lethal. The guard jumped. No, Alpha. I didn't expect the Luna to be dressed like that for dinner. It was a stupid comment, a nervous slip of the tongue. Barack stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the stone floor. The guard went pale. Alpha, I didn't mean... You dare? Barack asked, his voice deceptively soft. He walked around the table. He moved like smoke. You dare to look at my mate? You dare to judge her? No, sir, I swear. She carries my heir, Barack snarled, towering over the shaking man. She is the blood in my veins. If she wanted to dine naked covered in mud, you would bow your head and thank her for the privilege of breathing the same air. Barack reached out and grabbed the guard by the throat. He didn't squeeze. He just held him there, lifting him off his feet until his boots dangled inches from the floor. The violence was casual, effortless. Barack! Selena screamed, jumping up. The chair toppled over behind her. Barack didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the guard, his pupils dilated into black pools of violence. Disrespect to her is treason. Treason is death. Stop! Selena ran forward, grabbing Barack's arm. Her hands were small against his bicep, which was hard as granite. Put him down, please! Barack looked down at her hands on his arm. The contact seemed to shock him. The red haze in his eyes cleared slightly. He looked at Selena's terrified face. Not terrified of him, but terrified for the man he was holding. He dropped the guard. The man hit the floor, gasping for air, clutching his throat. Get out, Barack said, his voice flat. Report to Logan. You are stripped of rank. If I see you in the inner circle again, I will remove your head. The guard scrambled away, fleeing the room. Barack stood there, his chest heaving slightly. He looked at his hands, then at Selena. He looked like a monster who had just remembered he was trying to be a man. You, Selena breathed, stepping back. You almost killed him for a comment. I would burn the world for a comment, Barack said, looking at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Do you not understand, Selena? You are not a prisoner here. You are the queen. Anyone who fails to see that will not survive me. Later that night, the pain came. It started as a dull ache in her lower back and wrapped around her abdomen like a vice. Selena curled into a ball in the center of the massive bed, biting her lip to keep from crying out. It was the rejection sickness. It was fighting the pregnancy. Her body was too weak to support the alpha blood. The door creaked open. Selena? Barack stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. He could smell her pain. He was at the bedside in an instant. "What is it? The baby?" Panic laced his voice. "It hurts," she gasped, clutching the sheets. "It hurts so much." "Anahita said this would happen," Barak murmured. He sat on the edge of the bed. He looked helpless, his large hands hovering over her. "Your wolf is starving for the bond. You need energy." "I can't," she whimpered. "Let me help," he said. "Please, just let me." He didn't wait for permission. He slid his hand under her shirt, pressing his warm, rough palm directly against the skin of her lower back. The effect was instantaneous. A jolt of electricity, pure and warm, shot through her body. It wasn't painful. It was relief. It was like drinking cool water after days in the desert. The bond roared to life, a golden thread connecting them. Barak closed his eyes, exhaling a shuddering breath as he poured his own strength into her. The pain vanished. Her muscles relaxed. The nausea faded. Selena slumped against the pillows, her breathing evening out. She should push him away. She should fight him. But his hand felt so good. It felt like home. "Better?" he whispered, brushing a stray hair from her sweaty forehead. "Yes," she whispered, too exhausted to lie. Barak didn't move his hand. He lay down on top of the covers beside her, keeping the contact broken only by the sheet. "Sleep, Selena. I have you. I won't let the pain take you." For the first time in 3 months, Selena slept without nightmares. Chapter 7. The annual harvest gala was mandatory. That was what Gamma Virali had said, her voice clipped and professional. "The rumors are spreading, Alpha. The neighboring packs think you haven't claimed her. They think you are weak. If she doesn't appear by your side tonight, we will have war by morning." So Selena was being painted for war. She stood on a podium in the dressing room while 3 maids pinned and tucked a gown of deep, midnight blue velvet. It was long-sleeved, high-necked, but backless, a dress designed to be modest yet alluring. It hid the slight curve of her stomach but accentuated the curve of her hips. Barak leaned against the doorframe, watching. He was dressed in a tuxedo, the black fabric straining against his shoulders. He looked devastatingly handsome, and he knew it. But his eyes weren't on the mirror. They were on the exposed skin of her spine. "It's too low in the back," he grumbled. "It is fashionable, Alpha," the seamstress said nervously. "I don't care about fashion," Barak growled, walking into the room. He stopped behind Selena, his reflection towering over hers in the mirror. He placed his hand on the bare skin of her back. His touch was branding. "I don't want them looking at her skin. They don't deserve to see it." Selena met his eyes in the mirror. "It's just a back, Barak. Stop acting like a caveman." Barak's lips quirked up, a rare, genuine half-smile. "I am a wolf, Selena. We are cavemen by nature." He leaned down, whispering in her ear. "Stay close to me tonight. The sharks are circling." The ballroom was a sea of diamonds, silk, and power. Every alpha from the eastern seaboard was there. The air was thick with the scent of competing pheromones, expensive champagne, and hidden agendas. When Barak led Selena down the grand staircase, the room went silent. His hand was on the small of her back, a possessive weight that guided and claimed her. Selena held her head high, channeling every ounce of strength she had left. She felt the eyes, judgmental eyes, hungry eyes. "Breathe," Barak murmured. "I won't let them near you." They moved through the crowd. Gamma Virali was watching from the sidelines, her face tight. She gave a curt nod, acknowledging that Selena looked the part. "Alpha Barak," a voice called out. And the elusive Luna. An older alpha stepped forward, bowing slightly. Barack engaged him in conversation, talking politics and territory lines. Selena sipped her sparkling water, feeling like a doll on a shelf. "Smile," Barack whispered when the man walked away. "You look like you're at a funeral." "Maybe I am," she retorted. Barack tightened his grip on her waist, pulling her flush against his side. "Not tonight. Tonight you are the queen. Act like it." The atmosphere shifted. It wasn't a sound. It was a temperature change. The crowd near the entrance parted like the Red Sea. A man walked in. He was the polar opposite of Barack. Where Barack was dark, brooding, and stoic, this man was golden. Blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a smile that was all teeth and charm. He wore a white suit that stood out against the sea of black tuxedos. Alpha Blaze, the Lord of the South, Barack's greatest rival. "He wasn't invited," Barack said, his voice dropping to a subsonic growl. His body went rigid against Selena's. Blaze scanned the room, his eyes landing on Barack instantly. Then they slid to Selena. The smile widened. It was predatory, but in a seductive way. "Barack!" Blaze called out, his voice booming and jovial. He walked straight toward them, ignoring the tension in the room. "I heard you finally found your runaway. I had to come see if the rumors were true." Blaze stopped in front of them. He didn't bow. He looked Selena up and down, his gaze lingering on her neck where the mating mark should have been, but wasn't. "Charmed," Blaze said, extending a hand to Selena. "Touch her and you lose the hand," Barack said. He didn't raise his voice, but the threat was absolute. Blaze laughed, retracting his hand. "Touchy, touchy. Just paying my respects to the mother of the future. Whatever it is." Barack was pulled away moments later by a frantic Beta Logan, something about a security breach at the perimeter. Barack didn't want to leave, but Selena insisted. "Go. I'm fine. I'll stay right here." He left her with 2 guards, but the crowd was thick. A waiter spilled a tray of drinks, causing a commotion. The guards were distracted for 5 seconds. That was all it took. "You don't belong here, Selena." The whisper came from directly behind her. She turned. Blaze was there, standing dangerously close. He had moved through the crowd like a ghost. "Excuse me?" she said, stepping back. "I can smell it," Blaze whispered, leaning in, swirling his drink. "You're terrified of him. You reek of it. You're not his mate. You're his hostage." "I'm his Luna," she said, though her voice wavered. "You're a girl he caught in an alley," Blaze corrected. His blue eyes bored into hers. "I know about the brother, Selena. I know what he did. And I know that once that baby is born, you're going to disappear." Selena's heart hammered. It was exactly what Diva had said. "I have a car waiting," Blaze said quickly, his voice low. "Midnight. The service entrance. I can get you out. I can hide you where he will never find you." "Why would you help me?" "Because," Blaze smiled, and it wasn't charming anymore. It was cold. "Because I hate him. And taking his heir is the best way to break him." He slipped a small piece of paper into her hand. "Midnight. Don't be late." He vanished into the crowd just as Barack reappeared, his face thunderous. "Who were you talking to?" Barack demanded, scanning the room. Selena clutched the paper in her sweaty palm. "No one," she lied. Chapter 8. Barack didn't buy the lie. He grabbed her arm, firmly but not painfully, and marched her out of the ballroom. He didn't stop for pleasantries. He dragged her through the corridors, up the stairs, and into the master suite, slamming the door hard enough to shake the paintings on the walls. "Don't lie to me," he roared, spinning on her. He tore his tie off and threw it across the room. I saw him near you. I smelled his stench on you. What did Blaze say?" "He just said hello," Selena yelled back, backing up until she hit the dresser. "Why are you so paranoid?" "Paranoid?" Barack laughed, a dark, terrifying sound. "That man wants my head on a pike, Selena. He isn't flirting with you, he is scouting for weaknesses. And you?" He pointed a finger at her. "You are the biggest weakness I have." "I didn't ask to be," she screamed, the stress of the night finally breaking her. "I didn't ask for any of this. I hate this house. I hate these guards. And I hate you." The silence that followed was deafening. Barack stared at her, his chest heaving. The hurt flashed across his face, raw and open, before he walled it off behind a mask of indifference. "Hate me all you want, but you will not speak to him again." "Why? Because he knows the truth?" Selena challenged, stepping forward. The adrenaline made her reckless. "He told me, Barack. Diva told me too. Everyone knows." "Knows what?" Barack asked dangerously. "About your brother," she shouted. "About how you killed him. You slaughtered your own family to get that throne. You're a monster. And Blaze is right. Once this baby is born, you're going to kill me too because you can't stand anyone challenging your power." Barack went completely still. The color drained from his face, leaving him gray. He looked like she had physically struck him. "Is that what you think?" he whispered. His voice was broken. "You think I'm going to kill you?" "Why shouldn't I?" she cried, tears streaming down her face. "You're the butcher." Barack didn't yell. He didn't rage. He slowly began to unbutton his shirt. His hands were shaking. "What are you doing?" Selena asked, confused. He pulled the shirt open and shrugged it off his shoulders. Letting it fall to the floor, he turned around. Selena gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Barack's back was a ruin. 4 massive, jagged scars raked diagonally from his right shoulder to his left hip. They were old, thick, and ugly. The kind of wounds that should have killed him. They weren't from a blade. They were claw marks. Massive ones. "My brother," Barack said to the wall. "He had the madness, the rabies of the soul." He turned back to face her. His eyes were wet. "He attacked the nursery first," Barack said, his voice hollow. "He went after the pups. My father couldn't stop him. No one could. He was going to slaughter the entire pack." He took a step toward her. "I didn't kill him for power, Selena. I stepped between him and the children. He did this to me." He gestured to his chest, where more scars were visible. "I begged him to stop. I let him tear me apart for 10 minutes trying to reach his humanity. But he was gone, so I snapped his neck." A tear tracked down his cheek. "I killed the only person I ever loved besides you," he whispered, "to save the pack. And I have hated myself every single day since." Selena stood there, the paper with Blaze's note burning a hole in her hand. Her heart shattered. Everything Diva and Blaze had said was a lie. A twisted version of the truth designed to make her run. Barack wasn't a monster. He was a martyr. He bore the scars of saving everyone, and he let them call him the butcher, because he was too proud to explain himself. "Barack," she whispered. "If you want to go," he said, turning away, picking up his shirt. "Go. If you hate me that much, I won't stop you. I'll keep you safe from a distance. But don't look at me like I'm going to hurt you. That kills me." He started to walk toward the bathroom, defeated. Selena didn't think. She moved. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, pressing her face against his scarred back. Barack froze. "I'm sorry," she sobbed into his skin. "I'm so sorry." For a moment he stood rigid. Then, a shudder ran through his massive frame. He turned around in her arms, burying his face in her neck, clinging to her like a drowning man. "Don't leave me," he rasped against her pulse. "Please, Selena, don't leave me." Selena squeezed her eyes shut, holding him tighter. The bond flared, warm and bright, no longer painful. She opened her hand, letting the piece of paper with Blaze's escape plan flutter to the floor, unseen. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. But outside, in the dark of the night, a phone buzzed in the pocket of a traitor within the house. The message was sent. She didn't come. Move to Plan B. Chapter 9. Sunlight filtered through the heavy velvet curtains, painting stripes of gold across the duvet. Selena blinked her eyes open, her body heavy with a strange, unfamiliar lethargy. It wasn't the exhaustion of fear. It was the deep, restorative sleep of safety. She shifted, realizing she wasn't alone. Barack was sitting in the armchair in the corner of the room, fully dressed in casual clothes, a dark gray sweater and jeans that made him look less like a king and more like a man. He had a book in his lap, but he wasn't reading. He was watching her. Usually his gaze made her want to hide. Today, it felt like a warm blanket. "You slept for 12 hours, he said softly, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in her chest. "I didn't mean to," Selena murmured, sitting up. She pulled the sheet up to her chin, suddenly shy. The memory of last night, her arms around his scarred back, his tears on her neck, flooded back. They hadn't slept together, not like that, but the intimacy had been far more intense than sex. "Dr. Anahita is pleased," Barack said, standing up and walking over to the bed. He moved differently now. The predatory edge was still there, but it was leashed. "She says your heart rate has stabilized. The pup is settling." He sat on the edge of the mattress. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out, his large hand hovering near her cheek. He waited. He was waiting for her permission. Selena leaned into his touch. Barack let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for hours. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, his skin rough but gentle. "Hungry?" "Starving," she admitted. "Good." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Because I dismissed the chef. I didn't want anyone else in here this morning. You're stuck with my cooking." The kitchen was a gleaming expanse of stainless steel and marble, usually bustling with staff. Now it was quiet, smelling of coffee and burnt toast. Selena sat on a stool at the island, watching the alpha of the East Coast struggle with an omelet pan. It was almost comical. Barack Liam, the man who could crush a skull with one hand, was currently frowning with intense concentration at a spatula. "You're burning the butter," Selena pointed out, biting her lip to hide a smile. "I am not," Barack grumbled, flipping the eggs. "I am caramelizing it. It's a technique." "It's smoke," she laughed. Barack froze. He turned slowly to look at her. The spatula dripped egg onto the pristine counter, but he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on her face with an expression of pure wonder. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "You laughed," he whispered. "I have never heard you laugh." The air in the kitchen shifted. It became thick, charged with something tender and terrifying. Selena looked down at her hands. "I haven't had much to laugh about lately." Barack abandoned the stove. He walked around the island and stood between her knees, his hands resting on the counter on either side of her, boxing her in. But this time the cage didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a fortress. "I will spend the rest of my life trying to make you laugh, Selena," he vowed, his voice fierce. "I will replace every bad memory with a good one. I swear it." He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. Selina closed her eyes, breathing in his scent. Cedar, rain, and now, burnt butter. The nausea that had plagued her for months was gone, replaced by a hum of energy. Suddenly, a strange sensation fluttered low in her abdomen. It wasn't pain. It was like a butterfly wing, a tiny, deliberate ripple. Selina gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. Barack pulled back instantly, panic flaring in his eyes. What? Is it pain? Do I need to get Anahita? No, Selina breathed, her eyes wide. No, it's... Give me your hand. She took his large hand and pressed it firmly against the curve of her belly, just above the waistband of her sweatpants. They waited. Silence stretched, heavy and expectant. Then, it happened again. A tiny, distinct thump. Barack's eyes went wide. His jaw dropped. The butcher, the warlord, looked absolutely floored. He moved, Barack whispered, his voice shaking. Or she, Selina corrected softly. Barack looked at her, his golden eyes shimmering with unshed emotion. We made this, he said, as if realizing it for the first time. Despite everything, life found a way. He leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead, then her nose, then hovering just inches from her lips. Selina didn't pull away. She tilted her head up, her heart pounding. The kitchen door burst open. Alpha, we have a... Beta Logan Donovan skidded to a halt, his chest heaving. He took in the scene. The Alpha and the Luna. Intimate. Domestic. The smell of burnt eggs in the air. Logan looked like he wanted to disappear, but the urgency on his face was too great. Barack didn't pull away from Selina, but his body hardened. The tenderness vanished, replaced instantly by the armor of the king. He turned his head, his eyes cold. This better be an invasion, Logan. It is, sir, Logan said grimly. Not troops. Data. Someone bypassed the firewall on the western perimeter sensors. They were looped for 10 minutes last night. Barack straightened up, stepping away from Selina. The loss of his warmth was immediate and jarring. 10 minutes is enough to move a battalion. Did they enter? We don't know, Logan admitted. But we found tracks near the service road. Silver-tipped boots. Mercenaries. Barack's face went stone cold. He looked at Selina. Get Virali. Lock the estate down. No one comes in. No one goes out. And sweep the house again. We did, Alpha, Logan said quietly. If someone let them in, the call came from inside the house. Chapter 10. The atmosphere in the estate curdled. The domestic peace of the morning evaporated, replaced by the metallic taste of paranoia. Shutters were drawn. Guards with assault rifles patrolled the hallways. Selina was confined to the library this time. For her safety. But it felt like a cell. Gamma Virali was tearing the staff apart in the main hall. Selina could hear her sharp, clipped voice through the heavy oak doors. Who had access to the server room? I want logs. I want alibis. Selina paced the room. She couldn't just sit here. The call came from inside the house. That meant the traitor was still here. She thought of Diva. Barack had said Diva was dealt with, but he hadn't killed her. He had exiled her to the lower quarters, stripping her of rank. But exiles still had eyes. Selina slipped out of the library when the guard at the door turned to answer his radio. She didn't go toward the safe zones. She went toward the servants' wing. The lower quarters were damp and smelled of bleach. It was a stark contrast to the velvet and gold of the upper floors. Selina moved silently, her sneakers making no sound on the concrete. She didn't know what she was looking for until she saw her. Diva was standing near the laundry chutes, holding a basket of linens. She looked humbled, wearing a gray uniform, her hair tied back, but her posture was wrong. She wasn't slouching in defeat. She was tense, alert. Selena watched from behind a pillar. Diva looked left, then right. When the coast was clear, she didn't put the laundry in the machine. She reached behind the industrial dryer, pulling out a loose brick in the wall. Selena's breath hitched. Diva pulled something out. It wasn't a weapon. It was a small black burner phone. She tapped out a quick message, her thumbs flying, a cruel, satisfied smirk twisting her lips. She shoved the phone back into the hole and replaced the brick. She wasn't just sulking. She was coordinating. Diva picked up her basket and walked toward the exit. Selena waited until her footsteps faded before she moved. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had to get that phone. She had to show Barack. This was the proof he needed to know that Diva was the snake, that the threat wasn't just external. Selena darted across the room. She fell to her knees behind the dryer, ignoring the grime. She clawed at the loose brick. It was heavy, scraping her fingers, but she pried it loose. There it was, the black phone. She grabbed it, her hands shaking. She pressed the side button. The screen lit up. One new message sent. Target is soft. He suspects nothing. The package is ready for extraction at midnight. Plan B is a go. Oh, God, Selena whispered. The package. That was her. Or the baby. She stood up, clutching the phone. She had to find Barack. She had to. I wouldn't do that if I were you, little Luna. Selena spun around. Diva was standing in the doorway. She wasn't holding a laundry basket anymore. She was holding a silver letter opener, playing with the tip against her finger. The humble servant act was gone. Her eyes were manic. You really are a pest, Diva sighed, walking slowly into the room. I told Blaze you were stupid, just a scared little runaway. But you have a bad habit of being in places you don't belong. Barack will kill you, Selena said, her voice trembling but defiant. She held the phone up. I have the proof. He won't see it, Diva said casually. Because if you show him that phone, Emily dies. Selena froze. The blood drained from her face. What? Diva pulled her own phone, her legitimate one, from her pocket and turned the screen toward Selena. It was a live video feed. It was the diner, the Route 9 pit stop. But it was dark. In the center of the kitchen, tied to a chair with duct tape over her mouth, was Emily. A man in a mask was holding a gun to her head. Toby, isn't it? Or Emily? Hard to keep track of the peasants, Diva sneered. Blaze's men are with her now. One text from me, or if I stop reporting in, and they pull the trigger. Selena dropped the hand holding the burner phone. It clattered to the floor. Good girl, Diva smiled. Now give me the phone. Chapter 11. Selena felt like she was underwater. The sounds of the laundry room, the hum of the machines, the drip of a faucet, sounded distant. All she could see was Emily's terrified eyes on that small screen. Let her go, Selena whispered. She has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this, Diva said, snatching the burner phone back. She tucked it into her pocket. She is your leverage, and you, my dear, are going to do exactly what I say. Diva stepped closer, invading Selena's space. Barack can't protect her. His guards are all here, locking down the estate. By the time he sends anyone to that diner, the girl will be dead. The only way she lives is if you leave. Leave? Tonight, Diva commanded. You are going to walk out. You are going to leave a note saying you realized you couldn't be a queen, that you never loved him. You are going to break his heart so thoroughly that he won't come looking for you. He will come, Selena said. He won't stop. He will if you make him believe you betrayed him, Diva hissed. If you don't, Emily dies. and then Blaze burns the diner to the ground with Matilda inside too. Selena walked back to the upper floors like a zombie. She passed guards who nodded at her respectfully. She passed Anahita, who asked if she was feeling all right. Selena nodded, mute, terrified that if she opened her mouth she would scream. She found Barack in the study. He was poring over maps with Logan and Virali. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up. When she entered, his head snapped up. The tension in his face melted the moment he saw her. "Selena," he breathed. He waved his hand, dismissing his commanders. "Out. Give us a moment." Logan and Virali bowed and left, closing the door. Barack walked around the desk. He reached for her, pulling her into his arms. "I was worried. You were gone from the library. Are you okay?" Selena stood rigid in his arms. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to scream. "Diva has Emily! Help me!" But she saw the image of the gun to Emily's head. She saw Diva's finger hovering over the send button. "I'm fine," she lied. Her voice sounded hollow. Barack frowned. He pulled back, searching her face. "You're shaking. Did something happen?" "I'm just tired," she said, stepping out of his embrace. "The lockdown. It's scary." Barack looked at his empty hands, then back at her. The warmth from the morning was fading, replaced by a creeping doubt. "It is necessary," he said, his voice hardening slightly. "I am protecting you." "I know," she said, turning her back to him. She couldn't look at him. If she looked at his eyes, those golden eyes that had looked at her with such love in the kitchen, she would break, and Emily would die. "Selena," Barack asked softly, "this morning, was it real, or was it just the moment?" He thought she was regretting the intimacy. He thought she was pulling away because she didn't want him. "It was real," she whispered. "It was the most real thing I've ever felt." "But this life, the guns, the threats, I don't know if I can do it, Barack." It was the lie Diva wanted her to tell. Barack went still. The silence stretched, painful and heavy. "I see," he said finally. His voice was devoid of emotion. "Go rest. You have had a long day." He turned back to his maps. He didn't watch her leave. Selena fled to the bedroom. A note had been slid under the door while she was gone. It was handwritten on official estate stationery, likely stolen. Midnight. Service entrance C. The cameras will be looped for 2 minutes. A black sedan will be waiting. Driver code, Phoenix. If you are late, the girl bleeds. Selena crumpled the note in her fist. She looked around the room. The silk sheets, the heavy curtains, the scent of him that was everywhere. She had to break his heart to save a life. It was the cruelest choice imaginable. But she was a mother now. She understood the instinct to protect the innocent. Emily was innocent. Barack was a king. He could survive a broken heart. Emily wouldn't survive a bullet. Chapter 12, 11:45 p.m. The house was quiet. The storm had returned outside, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Selena packed a small bag. Just essentials. She didn't take any of the jewelry he had given her. She didn't take the fine clothes. She put on her old sneakers, the ones she had worn in the diner. She sat at the desk to write the note. "Barack, you were right. I am a runner. I can't be a queen. I can't live in a cage, even a golden one. Don't come looking for me. The baby is mine. You are better off without us. Selena." She stared at the words. They were poison. They were lies. She held the lighter to the corner of the paper. She watched the flame curl the edges, turning the lies into ash. She couldn't leave it. If she left it, he would stop looking. And deep down, a selfish, terrified part of her wanted him to come. She wanted him to chase her. She wanted him to tear the world apart to find her again. She dropped the burning paper into the metal wastebasket and watched it turn to dust. No note. Just a disappearance. 11:58 p.m. She moved through the corridors like a ghost. She knew the patrol routes now. She had watched them for days. She timed her movements with the thunder, using the noise to mask her footsteps. She reached service entrance C. It was a narrow door used by the catering staff. The keypad on the door blinked green. Unlocked. Diva had done her job. The internal traitor had cleared the path. Selena pushed the door open and stepped out into the rain. The cold hit her like a physical blow, soaking her clothes instantly. It washed away the scent of the estate, the scent of safety. She felt the bond in her chest pull tight, a painful, elastic snap. Barack was sleeping 3 floors up. Walking away felt like tearing a limb off. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the rain. "I'm so sorry." A black sedan sat idling in the shadows of the delivery bay. No lights. No plates. Selena ran toward it, clutching her bag to her chest. She reached the passenger door and yanked it open. "Code?" the driver asked. He was wearing a dark hoodie, his face obscured. "Phoenix," Selena gasped, wiping rain from her eyes. The driver nodded and unlocked the back door. "Get in, hurry." Selena threw her bag in and climbed into the back seat. The leather was cold. The car smelled of stale cigarette smoke and something else, something familiar. "Where are we going?" she asked as the driver gunned the engine. "Diva said a safe house." "Diva says a lot of things," the driver replied. He hit the locks. Click. Selena frowned. "Wait, what about Emily? Is she safe?" The driver didn't answer. He turned the car around, speeding toward the main gate, which, terrifyingly, was opening for them. Selena leaned forward. "I asked you a question. Is Emily safe?" The car passed under a streetlight. For a brief second, the light illuminated the driver's neck. There was a tattoo, a red flame, the mark of Alpha Blaze's pack. Selena's heart stopped. She lunged for the door handle, but it was disengaged. She pounded on the window. "Let me out! You're not the extraction." The driver laughed. He pulled a radio from the dashboard. "Packages secured, Alpha Blaze. We have the Luna." A crackle of static, and then Blaze's voice filled the car, smooth and terrifying. "Excellent work. And the traitor?" "Diva is staying behind to cover the tracks." "Good. Bring her to the nest. It's time to see if the butcher will bleed for his prize." Selena screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the speed of the car as they tore out onto the highway, leaving the Blackwood estate and her mate far behind in the dark. Chapter 13. Barack Liam stared at the unmade bed. The sheets were cold. He had felt the snap in the bond an hour ago, a sudden, sickening lurch in his chest that woke him from a dead sleep. He had sprinted to her room, tearing the door off its hinges in his panic, only to find nothing. No Selena. No bag. Just the faint, lingering scent of her fear and the charred remains of paper in the wastebasket. "Alpha." Logan stood in the doorway, his face pale. He held a tablet. "The service gate logs show an exit at 11:58, a maintenance vehicle." Barack didn't answer. He walked to the wastebasket. He picked up the trash can and dumped the ash into his hand. He could smell it. The sulfur of the match. The ink. And underneath it all, betrayal. "She left," Barack whispered. The pain was so acute it felt like a physical blade in his gut. "She ran again." "Alpha, we found something else," Logan said urgently. "In the laundry room, a burner phone." Barack looked up. His eyes were not golden anymore. They were black, a void where a soul used to be. "Bring it to me," he said. His voice was dead. Logan handed him the device. Barack scrolled through the texts. He saw the threats. He saw the video of the waitress, Emily. He saw the coordination with Phoenix. His hand tightened around the phone until the plastic cracked and the screen shattered into dust. "She didn't run," Barack snarled, the sound rising from his chest like a tectonic shift. The room began to vibrate with his aura. She was taken, coerced. He looked at Logan. "Wake the pack, every warrior, every enforcer. If they have touched a hair on her head, I will paint the state red with their blood." The black sedan screeched to a halt on gravel. Selena was thrown forward against the seatbelt, the strap digging painfully into her pregnant belly. She looked out the window. They weren't at a house. They were at an industrial complex, an old shipyard by the docks, rusted and looming against the stormy sky. The air here didn't smell like rain. It smelled of diesel, dead fish, and malice. "Get out," the driver barked, opening her door. Selena stumbled out into the cold wind. Her sneakers sank into the mud. She was surrounded by men in dark tactical gear, all wearing the red flame patch of Blaze's pack. They looked at her not with respect, but with hungry, mocking eyes. "So this is the prize," one of them sneered, grabbing her arm. "Don't touch me," Selena shouted, trying to wrench her arm away. "Where is Emily? You said she would be safe." "Emily?" The driver laughed, slamming the car door. "Honey, there was no gunman in the diner. That video was pre-recorded 2 days ago. The waitress is asleep in her bed." The world tilted on its axis. Selena gasped, the realization hitting her harder than a fist. "You lied." "We leveraged," the driver corrected. He shoved her forward. "Move. The Alpha is waiting." They dragged her through the rusting hull of a massive warehouse. It was hollow, echoing, and cold. In the center, sitting on a crate like it was a throne, sat Alpha Blaze. He looked impeccable in his white suit, a stark contrast to the grime around him. He was sipping whiskey from a crystal glass, watching her approach with a bored expression. "Welcome, Selena," Blaze smiled. "You look terrible. Runaway life doesn't suit you." "You promised," Selena spat, struggling against the guards holding her. "You said you would hide me." "I am hiding you." Blaze swirled his drink. "Barack will never look here. He thinks you left him. He thinks you wrote him a hate letter and vanished. By the time he realizes the truth, the heir will be born." "He will find me," Selena promised, her voice shaking with rage. "He is the king." "He is a broken man." Blaze stood up, walking toward her. "And broken men make mistakes. I'm counting on it." He reached out and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. His grip was painful. "You are going to stay here until that pup is born. Then I will take the child, raise it as my own to claim the bloodline, and kill Barack when he comes to beg for it." "And me?" Selena whispered. Blaze shrugged. "You? You're just the wrapper. Once the candy is out, who cares?" He gestured to his men. "Throw her in the holding cell. Give her water. We need the incubator healthy." They dragged her away, kicking and screaming. They hauled her down a metal staircase into the bowels of the ship. They threw her into a small, windowless room with a steel door. Selena hit the floor hard, scraping her hands. The door slammed shut with a deafening clang. The lock turned. Silence. Selena curled into a ball on the cold metal floor. It was pitch black. She was alone. She had walked right into the trap. She had betrayed the only man who had ever tried to protect her, all for a lie. She wrapped her arms around her stomach, rocking back and forth. "I'm sorry, Barack," she sobbed into the darkness. "I'm so sorry." But apologies wouldn't save her. and for the first time she realized that no one was coming to save her. If she wanted her baby to live, she was going to have to save herself. Chapter 14. Hours passed, or maybe days. In the dark, time didn't exist. Selena lay on the thin mattress in the corner of the cell. She was weak. The stress had triggered the sickness again. Her head pounded, and her stomach roiled. She tried to reach for the bond. She tried to feel Barack, but there was nothing, just a cold, static fuzz in her mind. It was the silver. The walls of the cell were lined with it. It dampened shifter abilities, cutting her off from her mate and her wolf. "He thinks I left him," she whispered to the ceiling. That was the worst part. Barack wasn't coming because he thought she didn't want him. He was probably sitting in that nursery, looking at the empty crib, hating her. The door slot slid open. A tray of food was shoved through. Bread and water. "Eat up, Luna," a guard laughed from the other side. "Don't want the baby to starve." Selena stared at the bread. Despair was a heavy blanket, suffocating her. It would be so easy to just close her eyes, to give up, to let the darkness take her. Thump. A strong kick against her ribs. Selena gasped, her hand flying to her belly. Thump. Thump. The baby was awake. It was restless. It could feel her fear, and it was fighting back. A sudden surge of heat flooded Selena's chest. It wasn't the bond with Barack. It was something ancient. It was the bond between a mother and her young. Her wolf, dormant for months, lifted its head in the back of her mind. It didn't howl for its mate. It snarled for its pup. "Get up!" the instinct screamed. "Get up or we die." Selena sat up. She ate the bread, choking it down dry. She drank the water. She needed strength. She wasn't a warrior. She wasn't a queen. She was a waitress from a roadside diner who had survived on tips and grit for years. She knew how to deal with bad men. She looked at the door. One guard. He came every 4 hours. He was cocky, careless. She stood up. She wasn't leaving this cell as a prisoner. She waited. She listened to the footsteps echoing on the metal grating outside. Clang, clang, clang. He was coming back. Selena lay on the floor near the door. She curled up, clutching her stomach. She let out a low, pained moan. "Help!" she cried out, her voice ragged. "Please, something is wrong." The footsteps stopped outside the door. "Shut up in there," the guard grumbled. "It's the baby," Selena screamed, injecting every ounce of terror she felt into her voice. "I'm bleeding. Please. The alpha will kill you if the baby dies." Silence. Then, the jingle of keys. The guard was stupid, but he was also afraid of Blaze. If the heir died on his watch, he was a dead man. The lock clicked. The heavy steel door creaked open. "What is it?" the guard demanded, stepping into the room, his flashlight sweeping over her curled form. "Get up." Selena didn't move. She waited until he was 2 steps inside, until he leaned down to check on her. She moved with the desperation of a cornered animal. Selena grabbed the heavy metal food tray she had hidden under her body and swung it upward with both hands. Crack. The metal edge connected with the guard's nose. Blood sprayed. He howled in pain, dropping the flashlight and stumbling back. He didn't go down. He was a shifter. He was strong. He roared, his hands coming up to grab her throat. Selena didn't try to overpower him. She went low. She kicked him hard in the knee, shattering the joint. He buckled. As he fell, she scrambled over him, grabbing the keys from his belt. "Bitch!" he screamed, grabbing her ankle. Selena kicked backward, her heel connecting with his face. He let go. She scrambled out of the cell, slamming the heavy door shut and fumbling with the keys to lock it. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped them twice, but she managed to turn the bolt just as the guard threw his body against the door from the inside. She was out. She stood in the corridor, panting. Sirens began to blare. The guard had radioed for help before he entered. Red lights flashed. Selena ran. She didn't know where she was going, but she ran toward the smell of rain. Chapter 15. Barack didn't knock. The reinforced steel gates of the shipyard exploded inward, twisted into scrap metal by the sheer force of the impact. The armored SUV of the Blackwood pack rammed through the debris, followed by 3 more. Barack leaped from the lead vehicle before it even stopped moving. He wasn't wearing a suit today. He was wearing tactical armor, his sleeves rolled up to reveal the scars on his arms. He didn't shift into his wolf form. He didn't need to. The man was more terrifying than the beast. "Kill them all!" Barack roared, his voice shaking the foundations of the warehouse. "Leave no one standing." Beta Logan and the enforcers poured out, shifting mid-stride into massive gray and black wolves. They tore into Blaze's perimeter guards like a scythe through wheat. Barack walked through the chaos. A guard charged him with a stun baton. Barack caught the baton, snapped the man's arm, and threw him 20 feet into a shipping container without breaking stride. He tracked the scent. It was faint, buried under the stench of the shipyard, but he could smell her. Milk and honey and blood. "Selena!" he bellowed. Selena heard the explosion. She felt the floor vibrate. She was hiding behind a stack of oil drums on the upper catwalk of the warehouse. Below her, the shipyard had turned into a war zone. She saw wolves tearing at each other. She saw gunfire. She saw the Blackwood SUV. "He came," she sobbed, relief making her knees give out. "He came for me." But she was stuck. The staircase down was blocked by Blaze's men who were firing at the Blackwood wolves. She had to get to him. She crawled along the catwalk, trying to stay out of sight. A stray bullet pinged off the railing next to her head, sending sparks flying. She flinched, covering her head. "Barack!" she screamed, though her voice was drowned out by the noise of battle. Down below, amidst the carnage, Barack froze. His head snapped up. His eyes locked onto the catwalk. He saw her. For a second, their eyes met. The relief on his face was heartbreaking. He took a step toward the ladder. "Not so fast!" A hand grabbed Selena's hair, yanking her back. She screamed, clawing at the hand. It was Blaze. He looked disheveled, his white suit stained with soot. He had realized his army was falling. He needed his shield. "Let her go!" Barack roared from the ground floor. He started climbing the scaffolding, moving with unnatural speed. "Stay back!" Blaze shouted, dragging Selena to the edge of the railing. He pulled a silver knife from his belt and pressed it against her throat. "One more step, Butcher, and I open her up." Barack froze on the ladder. He was 20 feet below them, too far to jump. The entire warehouse seemed to go silent. The fighting slowed as the alphas faced off. "You lose, Barack," Blaze panted, wild-eyed. "I have the queen. I have the heir. You have nothing." Selena felt the cold bite of the silver blade against her skin. It burned. She looked down at Barack. He was hanging off the side of the scaffolding, his chest heaving. He looked desperate. He looked like a man watching his entire world dangle over a precipice. "Don't hurt her," Barack said. His voice was no longer a roar. It was a beg. "Blaze, look at me. Don't hurt her. Put your weapons down." Blaze screamed at the Blackwood wolves below. "Submit, or she dies." Barack looked at Logan. He gave a tiny nod. Logan dropped his gun. The other wolves stopped fighting, lowering their heads. "I surrender," Barack said, climbing down slowly, holding his hands up. I surrender. Just let her go. Blaze laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound. The butcher kneels. Look at him. Kneeling for a bitch and a bastard pup. Chapter 16. Barack hit the concrete floor. He fell to his knees in the dirt and oil. He lowered his head, exposing his neck, the ultimate sign of submission for an alpha. I am yours, Barack said, his voice grating like gravel. Take my territory. Take my life. Just let her walk away. Selena watched from the catwalk, tears streaming down her face. He was giving up everything, his pride, his power, his life. For her. After she had left him. After she had written that note. No! She screamed. Barack, get up! Fight him! Silence! Blaze tightened his grip, the knife drawing a thin line of blood on her neck. Barack flinched as if he had been cut himself. I'm begging you, Blaze, take me. Blaze grinned. Oh, I will. But I think I'll keep her too. Why settle for one trophy when I can have the whole set? Blaze dragged Selena toward the stairs. Beta, bring the chains. I want the great alpha Barack Liam collared like a dog. Barack didn't move. He stayed kneeling, his eyes locked on Selena. He was communicating with her, not with words, but with the bond. Trust me, his eyes said. Selena's heart hammered. She realized he wasn't submitting. He was waiting. He was waiting for Blaze to make a mistake. He was waiting for the distance to close. Blaze was arrogant. He thought he had won. He was dragging her down the stairs, getting closer to the ground floor. Closer to Barack. 10 feet. 5 feet. Blaze stepped onto the concrete floor, dragging Selena in front of him as a human shield. Kiss my boot, Blaze sneered at Barack. Barack leaned forward, as if to comply. Selena saw the muscle in Barack's jaw jump. She knew what she had to do. She couldn't just be the damsel. She had to be the Luna. As Blaze shifted his weight to gloat, loosening his grip on her just a fraction, Selena stomped down on his foot with all her might. At the same time, she threw her head back, slamming her skull into his nose. Crunch! Blaze howled, stumbling back, the knife slipping from her throat. Now! Selena screamed. Barack exploded from his kneeling position. He didn't shift. He launched himself like a missile. He hit Blaze with the force of a freight train, tackling him away from Selena. They crashed into a pile of crates. Fists flew. It was brutal, animalistic violence. Run, Selena! Barack roared, punching Blaze in the throat. But Selena didn't run. She grabbed a heavy iron pipe from the floor. Blaze scrambled up, spitting blood. He pulled a gun from his waistband, aiming it at Barack's chest. Die! Blaze screamed. Barack was too far away to stop him. Selena swung the pipe. She hit Blaze's arm just as he pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, pinging off the ceiling. Blaze spun around, shocked. You... Barack was on him. He grabbed Blaze by the lapels of his ruined white suit and slammed him into a steel support beam. You touched her, Barack snarled, his voice distorted, his face shifting, his teeth elongating. You touched my mate. Barack buried his fist in Blaze's gut, then grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Please, Blaze gurgled, clawing at Barack's hand. Barack leaned in close. The butcher sends his regards. He threw Blaze to the ground. Logan and the enforcers swarmed in, securing the fallen alpha. Barack didn't watch. He turned around. He stood there, chest heaving, blood on his knuckles, looking wild and terrifying. Selena dropped the pipe. She stood there, shivering, holding her stomach. Barack took a step toward her. He looked terrified she would run again. Selena? He rasped. She didn't run. She ran to him. She collided with his chest, wrapping her arms around his neck. Barack let out a sound that was half sob, half growl, and crushed her against him, burying his face in her hair. "I got you," he whispered, shaking. "I got you. I'm never letting you go." Selena buried her face in his neck, inhaling the scent of rain, sandalwood, and safety. "Take me home, Barack. Please take us home." Chapter 17. The drive back to the Blackwood estate was silent, but it wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence of before. It was the silence of exhaustion. Selena lay curled in the back seat of the SUV, her head resting on Barack's lap. He hadn't let go of her since they left the shipyard. His hand was tangled in her hair, his thumb tracing the pulse point on her neck, checking over and over that her heart was still beating. "We are crossing the territory line," Logan announced from the driver's seat. "Emily is secure. We sent a team to the diner. She's shaken but unharmed." Selena let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for 24 hours. "She's safe," she whispered against Barack's leg. "She is safe," Barack confirmed, his voice low and raspy. "And so are you." The gates of the estate opened, revealing the sprawling mansion. It didn't look like a prison anymore. It looked like a fortress. Her fortress. When the car stopped, Barack didn't wait for the door to be opened. He kicked it open and scooped Selena into his arms, carrying her bridal style up the steps. The household staff was lined up in the foyer, maids, guards, cooks. They didn't look at her with judgment this time. They lowered their heads. "Welcome home, Luna," the head housekeeper murmured. It was the first time the title didn't feel like an insult. It felt like a shield. Barack didn't take her to the bedroom. He carried her straight to the great hall, where Gamma Virali was waiting. But Virali wasn't alone. Kneeling on the marble floor, hands zip-tied behind her back, was Diva. Her immaculate hair was messy, her face pale. 2 enforcers stood over her. Barack set Selena down on a velvet chair, but he stood between her and Diva, a wall of protective muscle. "You failed," Diva spat, looking up at Barack with venomous eyes. "You should have let Blaze kill her. She's weak. She's a traitor." "She didn't leave because she was a traitor," Barack said, his voice deadly calm. "She left because you threatened an innocent human. She left to save a life. That is not weakness, Diva. That is the strength of a queen." He walked toward her. Diva shrank back, the smell of her fear spiking in the air, sharp and sour. "I won't kill you," Barack said. "Death is too easy, and I do not wish to stain the floor of my son's home with your blood." He motioned to Logan. "Strip her rank," Barack commanded. "Sever her connection to the Packlands. Exile her to the rogue territories. If she steps 1 foot across the border again, hunt her down." Diva screamed as the enforcers dragged her away. "You'll regret this. She will destroy you." Her screams faded as the heavy doors slammed shut. Barack turned back to Selena. The butcher mask fell away, leaving only a tired, relieved man. He knelt in front of her chair, taking her small hands in his massive, scarred ones. "It's over," he whispered. "The rod is cut out." Later that night, the bedroom was warm and quiet. Barack had insisted on bathing her, washing the grime of the shipyard from her skin with a tenderness that made her chest ache. Now she sat on the edge of the bed while he dried her hair. "I found the ash," he said quietly, pausing the towel. "In the wastebasket." Selena froze. "I thought you wrote a letter," Barack said, his voice tight. "I thought you wrote that you hated me, that you never wanted to see me again." Selena turned around, grabbing his hands. "I tried to," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "Diva told me to write it, to break your heart so you wouldn't follow me. But I couldn't do it." "Why?" Barack asked, searching her eyes. "Because it wasn't true," she whispered. "I burned it because even in the middle of running away, I wanted you to come. I wanted you to find me." Barack closed his eyes, pressing his forehead against hers. "I will always find you, Selena. There is no corner of this earth where you can hide from me. You are my soul." The bond between them flared, hot, bright, and unbreakable. For the first time, Selena didn't fight it. She opened her heart and let the golden thread snap into place, locking them together. Barack gasped, feeling the acceptance. He kissed her, not with hunger, but with worship. Peace settled over the room. Barack pulled the duvet up, tucking her in. "Sleep," he murmured, kissing her temple. "You need to rest. The baby needs rest." Selena closed her eyes, finally feeling safe. She felt the heavy weight of Barack's arm drape over her waist, anchoring her to the bed, anchoring her to him. She drifted toward sleep. Pop. A strange, wet sensation, followed immediately by a cramp that seized her entire abdomen like a vice. Selena's eyes snapped open. She gasped, gripping Barack's forearm, her nails digging into his skin. "Barack!" He was awake instantly. "What? What is it?" "The bed," she panted, the pain rolling over her in a suffocating wave. "It's wet." Barack threw the covers back. The sheets were soaked. He looked at her, panic widening his golden eyes. It was too soon. It was a month early. The stress of the kidnapping, the fight, the adrenaline. It had triggered labor. "The baby!" Selena cried out as another contraction hit her, harder this time. "He's coming!" Chapter 18. "Anahita!" Barack roared, his voice booming through the intercom system. "Medical team to the master suite, now!" The next hour was a blur of chaos. Selena was moved not to a hospital, but to the birthing suite Anahita had prepared in the East Wing. The room smelled of antiseptic and lavender, but beneath it, Selena could smell Barack's terror. He was pacing the room like a caged animal. Every time she groaned in pain, he flinched. "She's in distress!" Barack snarled at Dr. Anahita. "Fix it." "She is in labor, Alpha," Anahita said calmly, though her hands moved fast. "The pup is strong. He is fighting to get out. But Selena is exhausted. Her energy reserves are low." Barack rushed to the bedside, dropping to his knees. He grabbed Kalina's hand. "Take it," he ordered. "Take my strength. Take all of it." He pushed his power through the bond. Selena gasped as the energy flooded her veins, bolstering her flagging heart. It was overwhelming, thick, masculine, and ancient power. "I can't," she sobbed, sweat plastering her hair to her face. "It hurts too much." "You can," Barack swore, kissing her knuckles. "You fought off Blaze. You survived the streets. You are the strongest thing I have ever known. Do this for us, Selena. Bring him home." The hours stretched into the night. The storm outside raged, mirroring the battle inside the room. "One more push, Selena," Anahita commanded. "I can see the head." "I can't." "Yes, you can." Barack was right there, supporting her back, his face pressed against her neck. "Push, Selena. Push!" Selena screamed. A primal sound that tore from her throat. She gave everything she had left, every ounce of love, fear, and hope. She felt the pressure release. Silence filled the room. For one terrifying second, there was no sound. Barack went rigid against her back. Selena held her breath, her heart stopping. Then, "Wah!" A loud, lusty cry pierced the air. It was the sound of life, the sound of a new set of lungs announcing their arrival to the world. "It's a boy," Anahita announced, her voice thick with emotion. She lifted the wriggling, wet bundle. He was tiny, but perfect. And even covered in the fluids of birth, he had a shock of dark hair. Anahita cleaned the baby quickly, wrapping him in a soft white blanket. She walked over to Barack. "Alpha," she said softly. "Your son." Barack stood up. His hands that had snapped necks, crushed phones, and wielded weapons, were trembling uncontrollably. He reached out. Anahita placed the bundle in his arms. Barack looked down. The baby blinked, opening his eyes. They weren't blue like a human baby's. They were gold, pure, molten gold. The butcher of the East Coast broke. Tears spilled over Barack's cheeks, tracking through the stubble on his jaw. He let out a choked sob, pulling the baby against his chest, burying his nose in the soft fuzz of the infant's hair. "My heir," he whispered, his voice cracking. "My son." He turned to Selena. He sat on the edge of the bed and placed the baby in her arms. "Look what you did," he said, looking at her with a reverence usually reserved for gods. "You gave me a future." Selena looked down at the baby. He smelled of milk and honey. He smelled like them. "He's perfect," she whispered, touching the baby's tiny fist. "He is," Barack agreed. "But he needs a name." Selena looked up at Barack. "Liam," she said, "after his father." Barack smiled, a true, unburdened smile that reached his eyes. "Liam, the prince of the pack." 4 months later, the balcony of the Blackwood estate was bathed in the light of the full moon. The air was crisp, smelling of pine and winter. Selena stood at the railing, wearing a gown of silver silk. She wasn't hiding in oversized clothes anymore. She stood tall, the Luna of the pack, with the mating mark proudly visible on the curve of her neck. Barack stepped up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "They are waiting," he murmured. Below them, on the vast lawn, hundreds of wolves were gathered, the entire pack. They stood in silence, looking up at the balcony. "Are you ready?" Barack asked. "Yes," Selena said. Barack turned and lifted the bundle from the bassinet nearby. Little Liam, now 3 months old and strong as an ox, gurgled happily. Barack walked to the edge of the balcony. He lifted his son high into the air, presenting him to the moon and the pack. A howl started from the back of the crowd, then another, and another, until the night air was filled with the song of hundreds of wolves welcoming their future king. Barack lowered the baby and looked at Selena. "You ran from me once," he said softly, staring into her eyes. "Do you still want to run?" Selena looked at the man who had burned the world to find her. She looked at the son they had created. She looked at the home that was no longer a cage. She smiled, leaning up to kiss him. "No," she whispered. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be."